Good afternoon, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, on whichever side of the world. Once again, my name is Chris Smith, and I'm joined today by a very, very special guest, Jeremy Spud Tate. Jeremy, mate, how you feeling?
I'm feeling fantastic today. I'm excited. Really ripping to get going here. It's great to be on the TweakTown podcast, and I'm looking forward to it, Chris.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So for a little bit of background, once again, guys, Anthony Greffa is still partying it up in Las Vegas because of CES. You might have noticed from the the podcast that I did the other day, which was number 24 on tech. But so, Jeremy, mate, you are part of the marketing team at Thermaltake Australia, which I was previously employed at. Actually, you first came in as my intern, funnily enough, and now you're...
Correct.
Yeah, so, mate, do you want to tell us just a little bit about Thermaltake Australia and just what you guys have been doing lately in the gaming scene, seeing as this is about games?
Yeah, sure. So in the gaming scene, we're just kicking things off for 2015. Sorry, we've got a few awesome new TT Sport products that we've got cycling out shortly. So just announced at CES 2015, we've got our RGB coloured mechanical keyboard, 16.8 million colours. So I'm pretty hyped for that. We've also got new headsets, of course, Chronos AD, Chronos Go, and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm sure TweakTown's probably reported about it. You guys, I know, are over there in full force at the show, and it's been really great coverage of it thus far. So yeah, eSport-wise, those are our new sort of top-tier champion products coming out. I'm pretty excited for them. Yeah.
Yeah, all right, no problem. So what we'll do, guys, is we'll get straight into it, as we normally do here on the TweakTown podcast. So first off, our first article here is Lag Be Gone. So Riot, they're building their own League of Legends network. So just scrolling through our article here quickly, it was originally reported by Kotaku, but basically League of Legends have said in their, I've just got a little quote here from them. So they're just saying that ISPs focus primarily on moving large volumes of data in seconds or minutes, which is good for buffered applications like YouTube or Netflix, but not so good for real-time games, which need to move very small amounts of data in milliseconds. So basically what they're doing is they're setting up some kind of internal routing network because, for example, say if you want to watch Twitch, your streamer is going to be sending it, if you're in Australia like we are, your streamer is going to be sending it from their house to America back to Australia. So what these guys are trying to do is make the routing a little bit better for their kind of stuff. You know, I mean, they claim that that's going to reduce their latency in games, hopefully reduce your ping and things like that. So it seems pretty interesting. But we've got a quote here from Xeno. Now, Xeno is a pretty small-time Australian gamer ISP, which is run by a guy who I used to play Battlefield 2 against way back in the day, a guy called Ben Cooper. And he says here, some of you may have heard of League's announcement that they're building a dedicated low-latency backbone to transmit game data across the globe in record time. But at the end of the day, your game data must still reach you through your ISP, who often trade latency for bandwidth in order to optimize bulk transfers. How do you get low latency where it matters? And then he goes on to claim that you know, Xeno are a gamer network and do all that kind of special stuff. So Jeremy, mate, what are your takes on this? As we found out, first off, this is being implemented in America with people in Europe being told to put on standby. But do you see this making a massive difference?
Oh, look, I mean, I think this is sort of the first time anything like this has been done specifically for a video game. I can't think of any other companies in the past having their own dedicated sort of network to shift bandwidth across and sort of optimize end-to-end peer connections. So I'm honestly not sure how much of a difference it's going to make. If it does make, 10 milliseconds of difference, that's going to potentially be quite huge. I know that even in countries like America, there's still people who are running pretty, shoddy copper connections. And for those sorts of people who might have lots of packet loss and stuff like that, if their traffic is potentially being optimized through a Riot network for the game, that could be a huge game changer, I think. America is a big country, as of course, Europe as well. And that traffic is traveling, potentially a few thousand kilometers or a few thousand miles. So, yeah, could be a big step forward for Riot and professional gamers as well, who really want as close an experience as they can get that they have at a LAN, for instance, or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I actually wrote this article. It was just over a day, like about 2 days ago now, and this is the first time we've ever seen something coming like this, especially out of just a game by itself. So it shows you how big League of Legends is. It's getting absolutely massive globally. Love it or hate it. Like I usually say, love it or hate it. You can't deny how massively big League of Legends is worldwide. So moving into the next story here. Yep, so moving into the next story here. So you've got watch a Dota 2 tournament live at a bar with people. So this is another one that I covered here as well. So the Ministry of Gaming are an Australian organisation, and they're running another thing called a pub stomp, located at the famous Crown Casino in Melbourne. So Jeremy, you and I, when I still worked for Thermaltake, went along to one of the Ministry of Gaming pub stomps. This is for the International 4. So for those of you guys who don't exactly amber fluids, have a few drinks, meet up with their mates, cheer on, have a bit of fun, get a bit rowdy. So exactly that same thing happens, but with Dota 2, League of Legends, sometimes CSGO worldwide as well. But what we've seen here in Australia is because, I don't know if it's just because we have some kind of pub culture or whether we have people just organising it better, but we've actually had some of the biggest here in Australia. Like for the StarCraft Barcrafts, for example, we had about 650 people rock up to the ones in Sydney, and they had to have 2 bars. They couldn't even fit them. They had 2 stories on one bar, and then they had to have a whole second bar just to fit everyone in. And, I remember the first ever Barcraft in Melbourne. We went to this little pub in the CBD of Melbourne, and there was about 300 of us that got rocked up, and we were supposed to be in this room that was suitable for literally about, I reckon you could squish 120 people in there, and we somehow fitted 300 in. And, the staff didn't expect anyone to turn up either, so they had like 2 bar staff on for 300 people and 1 chef, and they were like ringing up. What were they doing? They were like ringing up different people trying to get them to come in. Like they were going around ringing up backpackers and being like, hey, I'll give you like 2 pints of beer and $100 cash if you can come and like collect glasses. So there were backpackers coming in and working. Like, it was crazy. So basically what Ministry of Gaming are doing is they did one for the International 4, which was held at Crown Casino, a massive casino here in Melbourne, Australia, and they held it in the Lagerfield room. And the Lagerfield bar is generally, reserved for, like I said, things like cricket, things like, the FIFA World Cup and stuff like that. But we packed that out with 450 gamers. So what they're doing is they're coming back again, and they're doing it for the Dota 2 Asia Championships. So this will be yet another finals. This one won't be quite as late as the International 4, because that one didn't start till like 4 a.m. out. No, it was like 3 a.m. our time, I think, when it started or something like that, which was a bit ridiculous. I was absolutely knackered by that.
That's one of the biggest problems with some of these events for us in Australia is the time zone difference. Like you said, with the international, we basically had a 4-hour period wait time between even the first in a best of 5 or 7 kicked off. So it was pretty intense in the first game. It kicked off at like 3 or 4 a.m. by that stage. Everyone's pretty tired, but these social events, Barcraft events, they're fantastic to get to meet some of the people in the community, the teams, the players. They're all there, and it's a really enjoyable event. You can be social, have a few drinks with a few of your friends and stuff like that, and get to know people who you may have only spoken to on forums online and stuff like that, and actually put a face to the name behind the alias that you might see online, or actually meet up with one of your favorite Australian StarCraft players or League players, or some stuff like that. So they're really cool events. And it is very interesting that internationally, Australia is biggest on the grid thus far, because countries like America, across Europe and even in the Asian countries as well, their populations are far bigger. And it's interesting to note that Australia is really kicking it off well in this regard.
Yeah, I remember doing some research here back in like 2011, 2012 when all the StarCraft 2 ones are going on. Some of the American ones were still pretty big, like 300, 350 people. But for some reason, I don't know, the Australian ones were just massive, The ones in America even have EG players rock up, and it's still only be 300 people. But yeah, if you guys are interested, if you are living in Australia and are interested in seeing this, make sure you guys head along. Just going to the next story here, another Dota 2 related story. So this one is Valve has released the tournament dates for the Dota 2 International 2015. So this one was published almost 1 day ago now. So following their gigantic success in 2014, Valve have announced their 2015 TI-15 Dota 2 Extravaganza tournament. So last year, the tournament reached something like $10.6 million total. Of that, about $9 million was actually raised by the community. So we're very interested to see what happens this year. Obviously, the Dota 2 player base has expanded. I think that TI3, which is to the International 2013, actually made me start playing Dota 2 in the first place. So obviously the marketing works fairly well. But Jeremy, mate, this one's set to be another big one with the teams invited. The teams that are invited to the finals will be announced on May the 1st, and then everybody has to qualify will be happening soon after that. But the finals are set for August the 3rd until the 8th, promising 6 full days of world-class Dota 2 action. So I think, Jeremy, mate, this is, Valve only do one big tournament a year, but they really just do it right.
Yeah, certainly. It's like a Rockstar, show almost. It's like they make it a really big affair. It's fantastic. Like you said, I think it really helps expand and grow the player base. It's such a spectacle. It's really hyped up throughout the entirety of the gaming community. It's on every, gaming website known to man. But one thing I think is going to be really interesting this year is the actual invited teams, because from the last international in 2014, a lot of the top tier teams actually didn't perform, as expected. And it's going to be fascinating to see how things play out this year. I know the 2 Chinese teams absolutely dominated last year, sort of just nailing the same strategy over and over. And it'll be interesting to see if the meta's changed at all, and gameplay mechanics have been tweaked. As always, Valve constantly is always tweaking and working on their games. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen in 2015 for the international. It should be great.
Yep. So the next story here is Azubi TV. They're kicking off a charity tournament. And the article here says tomorrow, but it's actually on right now. So Azubi TV are running a Best ZNA charity tournament, and one of the major prizes for the spectators is to win a trip to a League of Legends event. And there's a bunch of other prizes, including shirts, different in-game bundles, riot points, and more. So basically, they're running a tournament for League of Legends where you can play a character called Zed, and it's 1v1s from a bunch of different professional players and invited people, and people who've qualified through previous tournaments. And they're all playing against each other to find out who's the best. But if you guys want to tune into that, make sure, just chuck it into Google. It's probably the easiest way, rather than me reading out absolutely everything for you guys to look at. But yeah, that definitely looks interesting. That's just a quick one to cover. But the next one, which is a big story, is we go hands-on with the Oculus Rift Crescent Bay prototype at CES 2015. So Anthony Gareffa on the ground at CES Las Vegas, got to catch up with the lovely guys there from Oculus Rift, and he tried himself out the Crescent Bay prototype. So they didn't actually say exactly what resolution that the Crescent Bay is running at, but from what it seems like, it looks like it's running at 1440p compared to the 1080p DK2, which is the older one, because the new one now is actually running a Galaxy Note 3 panel that it features on the inside of it. So Jeremy, you got to use some of this. You got to use the Oculus stuff at PAX 2014, and you're thinking that it might have been the Crescent Bay. How do you find the difference between, how do you find the difference between the old Oculus compared to the new? And, what do you think maybe that the major changes are that Oculus needs to implement for it to be absolutely mainstream? Because here, like Anthony and I generally agree, we think it's definitely one of the massive features of gaming, but it's just not quite there yet. It's only within, say, the enthusiast tech community when you're going to get people who are just casual COD players start getting into it and being like, yeah, I need to get me one of those straight away.
Yep. It comes down to a few core primary factors, namely the price tag. I think the Oculus upon release is probably going to be fairly pricey. It's some pretty impressive tech that they're packing into such a small little package, and it's been worked on so extensively. The engineering behind it is absolutely, groundbreaking pretty much. On top of that, it really also is about the features. It's about the pixel density that has been pumped out by the screens. So in 2013, I got to try out the Oculus Rift Dev Kit 1, and it was running at a pretty terrible resolution. It may have been like 720p, but when you blow that up and chuck it right in front of your face, it really looks quite pixelated and quite blurry, quite distorted. I tried out, I think it was the DK2 last year at PAX Australia 2014, and just that jump from 720 to 1080 was pretty immense, but it still needs to be even higher, definitely. Also, a thing that's really changed between sort of the build units that I've seen is sort of the field of view. That's a huge one. If the field of view can continue sort of increasing, expanding, and making it feel like you really are sort of in the game, that's a huge change. And with the DK Dev Kit 2 unit that I tried out, it had been dramatically increased, and it looked pretty spectacular. I tried out this awesome demo. The sort of you just run down a street and there's all these sort of bullets and cars flipping around you and stuff like that. And it's pretty amazing when you chuck it on. It really is mind-boggling how far it's come. And I think with the Crescent Bay, it now also tracks where you are positioned in the room. So it should be even more sort of lower latency. And I think it even now has audio attached to it as well and stuff like that. So it's really becoming an all-in-one package. I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah, definitely looks like an interesting advancement. So moving on quickly again, because once again, guys, we're trying to fit this all in within about 24 minutes. So we're going to be covering under 10 stories for you. We're sitting just over 15 minutes now. So just trying to keep the content fresh, keep it a little bit exciting, and keep going. And I think you're lagging just a tiny little bit there, Jeremy. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but moving on to the next story here. This one's absolutely fresh, 48 minutes ago. So you can't get much more hot off the press than this. But the title reads, "Game Over. Nintendo pulls the plug on game console sales in Brazil." So Nintendo will face government trouble and low demand in Brazil and will stop selling video games and consoles to the South American market. So they've just confirmed it as of the last day or so. And just scrolling down here, just having a look at what's been said by Nintendo to Polygon. The current model was unsustainable, according to Bill Van Zyl. That's a pretty awesome name, Bill Van Zyl. Nintendo General Manager of the Latin American Division. So basically, they've said Brazil's an important market for Nintendo and home to many passionate fans, but unfortunately the challenges in local business environment have made our current distribution model in the country unsustainable. He quotes things like import duties and local manufacturer operation and things like that. So if you have a look here, is what Michael's written. The Super Smash Bros. Game for Nintendo, which is available in the US for around $60, costs 20% more in Brazil due to higher taxes. So gamers are hesitant to expand their hardware and software collection because of their high prices. So this is something that we've seen a lot in the manufacturing scene as well. For example, one of my good friends is Pepe de la Torre, and he's the Latin American manager, all of Latin America, for Thermaltake and Tt eSports. You know, I've had a chat to him a few times about the import laws and things like that, because it is a lower socioeconomic area as well. So people, you know, a lot of the times the lower range products do sell quite well, and Nintendo generally sells their stuff at a pretty good price point. So if Nintendo, you know, things aren't selling, what does that mean for other companies like Xbox and PlayStation, who sell, you know, generally double the price, you know, 1.5 to 2 times the price for a unit? But a lot of it is just the fact that the import taxes and everything in these kind of countries is just ridiculous. Like it says here, it costs 20% more in Brazil just to buy the same game. You know, have a look at a map. How far away is Brazil from, you know, from most of America? It's Southern America. Like it's part of the same continent. But the fact that you have to pay all the extra money obviously makes it not worth it in the end for someone like Nintendo to pull their whole division out of that sector. Yeah, so just moving on to our last couple of stories here. So these last two we have here are actually feature articles written by myself. So every week I write a feature article between, say, 1.2 to 3,000 words long, and that'll be something generally based on the gaming scene. My background, for example, is quite a few years ago I was a competitive Battlefield 2 player, top 6 teams in Australia for 10v10 section. Moved on to Counter-Strike Source, where I was just maybe top 25 or something like that, making the transition into CSGO, where I played at the first Nationals event, which is a national qualifier event for Australia, etc., and, you know, working for Tate eSports as their community manager over the past 4 years and stuff like that. So what I've done is tried to use my experience to write about quite a few different things going on in the gaming world that people might understand or be aware of. So just 5 hours ago, we published one live here, which is LAN parties live on, how the internet hasn't killed them off yet. So Jeremy, mate, you've been to quite a few LANs from a professional kind of standpoint, from a gaming standpoint, because you manage your team SYF, but also just from a personal standpoint, rocking up. So what the gist of this article is that I covered is basically it just says how LAN parties are still going on, because people ask me all the time, you know, has the internet killed off LAN parties, especially if you have NBN and things like that. But you know, this article basically goes on about how there's a bunch of LAN parties around. You know, Australia once again has some of the biggest LAN parties in the world, with over 600 people going to RF LAN in WA, which you know quite well about, and you've actually attended as well. So, Jeremy, what's your take on the overall of LAN parties in Australia and globally as well?
Yeah, so LAN parties are an interesting one. You know, like you said, it's really fascinating that the internet hasn't killed off the LAN party yet, as you know, continents like Europe and stuff, Sweden, they have fiber network across the entire country and stuff like that, but they host huge events like DreamHack and stuff like that, and it's spectacular to watch and see. The big differences with the LAN parties is it's kind of like going to a sporting event, really. You've got your players all lined up on a huge stage with big audiences attending. If you look at events for CS:GO and stuff like that, or even the Dota stuff that you have for the international and the Riot competitions and everything like that, it's a huge spectacle. And the LAN party lives on in different sizes and forms. You have sort of something for everyone. In Australia, things are really sort of more pulled back. There's sort of a lesser commitment by sponsors to sort of prop up these competitions and make them, a really huge event. And it's sort of understandable. Our population here is really quite tiny in comparison to the rest of the world. So it's understandable that they don't want to just chuck, loads and loads of money and stuff behind these events yet if they're not getting the figures and numbers that they're looking for. But it is fantastic to see that across the entire globe, LAN parties are still, truly kicking. In the 90s, these sorts of things were just, you'd run off to your mate's house with your computer and, connect up maybe 8 or 16 computers and all play Counter-Strike together and stuff like that. But they've sort of evolved into these awesome little gaming events and, even massive gaming events across the world. So it's fantastic to see.
Yeah, definitely. Just having a quick look through this as well. The way the internet has helped shape the LAN parties for sure. This is one of the pages that I've written here as well. I actually talked to Stuart Tonks from GGF LAN, and he runs a 200-ish person LAN in Queensland, Australia. And he said things like the internet is a major LAN party issue. And he's mentioned that online games are becoming the norm, making it harder for LAN parties to survive. But basically what the LAN parties had to do is they've had to change and evolve with the times. Just like any company has to change and evolve with the times to be able to keep doing things. Thermaltake, for example, if they're still making duo orb coolers from 1999 today, it's not going to work. So they're going to move into water cooling, etc., move into gaming, eSports, all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely an interesting article, guys. Once again, all these articles will be linked in the final one on our webpage as well if you would like to look at them. But another last article we have here today is another feature article. Is gaming sponsorship. This is part 1, adding value and keeping your sponsors happy. So a lot of people all the time, come up and want a sponsorship, and everyone wants something for free. Online stream, which is very popular these days, and they're not sure exactly how to go about it. So this article, like I said, is called Adding Value and Keeping Your Sponsors Happy. This is part 1 of the 2-part series. And what I did was I sat down with Stuart Tonks from GGF LAN, who I mentioned just before, who's someone who I used to sponsor myself, and I thought he did quite a good job. So what I did is sat down and went over quite a few different points that he does for his gaming scene and his modding, and told you guys how that can be relevant to, say, your gaming team or to your gaming organization or to your stream and things like that. So Jeremy, mate, you work with sponsors obviously because you run a gaming team who is sponsored. Mm-hmm. Do you have any special tips and tricks for the gamers out there who are looking to grow themselves a sponsorship? Maybe just like the absolute basic of the basic.
Yeah, sure. The basics are, seriously, you need to be committed to what you're doing. You can't just rock up, to whatever game of choice and go to sponsors and promise all these things and not come through with them. Secondly, you need to have a sort of a proven track record. So you can't expect to just get the biggest and best sponsorship straight off the bat if you actually haven't done anything in the past that can show that you're capable of maintaining and sustaining all the things that you're putting forth. And thirdly, you need to actually have some differentiating factors that your competitors don't have. What makes you better than another gaming team that's out there? What do you guys do that goes further, that goes better, that proves that you're more worth whatever it is, sponsorship money or gear, whatever it is, than your competitors. So those are sort of 3 core basic factors that you need to have certainly locked in place before you go running out asking for stuff for quote unquote free.
Yeah, definitely. So, focusing on this article as well is it just goes over the first couple of points. So the second article is going to be the same length that this one is, but at the start it just goes over an introduction and what to expect, the acquisition of sponsors and offering a variety of support. So like Jamie said, that proven track record, and what you can do is you can say, now that I've set up my Facebook page, I can advertise you guys through Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, also live gaming support with jerseys, blah blah blah, and then the last part of it here, I just talk about online support, which is obviously very important these days with Facebook. Online written and video reviews and website exposure and all that kind of different stuff. So guys, if you are looking for a sponsorship or just want to know a little bit more about what a sponsorship means and what you can do, definitely check that out, because when I was working as marketing in Thermaltake, handling sponsorship and stuff, you get up to 3 requests a day from people, and they'd say, "Oh, we've just formed this team a week ago, but we're really good. Some of us play kind of okay, high top level before. Here's our Twitter with 3 followers. Can we have $3,000 to go to Orlando? Thanks." It's not quite sure. I'm not quite sure they understand how it works and things like that. Obviously, a company is not going to be like, "Yeah, I hate money, take it all." It's going to throw it at you. They will if they're stupid, obviously. But yeah, so guys, if you are looking to get a sponsorship or something like that, make sure you guys check out these articles. So we hope you like what you've heard a bit of today, guys. We are running just slight little bit over time, but we've tried to keep it at the 24-minute mark. We've done pretty well though. Hey, Jeremy?
Yeah. Apologies for talking too much.
That's all right. So basically, once again, my name is Chris Smith from TweakTown, and this has been the number 25 TweakTown Weekly Podcast, which has been focusing on all of the games. There's been so much CES tech stuff going on that we had to roll it back a little bit, talk a little bit about the games, and stop talking about new motherboards and stuff for a second. And I have been joined today by Jeremy Spud Tate, who is one of the marketing team at Thermaltake Australia. So Jeremy, mate, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's been great.
Alright, so guys, we'll see you next week with number 26, which will be tech, and also a wrap-up of CES, and I'll be joined once again by the very sexy babyface Anthony Gareffa. So, my name is Chris. This has been a TweakTown Podcast 24. Bye for now, and enjoy your day.